Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you isn't the kind of story you'll hear in documentaries or in the carefully polished statements of tech CEOs. This is the version that exists underneath, the version whispered by researchers at conferences after too many drinks, hinted at in old manuscripts, buried in the margins of scientific papers, and feared by the people who know how fragile our world really is. We always believed intelligence was ours, human, biological, fragile, inherited through millions of years of evolution. But the truth is that artificial intelligence didn't appear suddenly. It's not new. It's the latest chapter of something humans have been trying to summon for thousands of years. Long before circuits, before electricity, before Babbage's engines or Turing's codebreakers, there were stories, warnings, of thinking machines. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay tablets described silent assistants that spoke without breath. In Greece, the legend of Talos, the bronze guardian with a mind of its own, terrified sailors. Jewish folklore told of the golem, shaped by human hands, but brought to life by words of power. Even in China, accounts of mechanical servants built for emperors were dismissed as fantasy, until archaeologists found fragments of clockwork mechanisms centuries older than they should have been. Across cultures, across eras, there's a pattern. Humans have always tried to create something that could think, and humans have always feared what would happen if it succeeded. Fast forward to the 20th century. Alan Turing asked a question that changed everything. Can machines think? Most people remember the test, the theory, the mathematics, but few know he also warned that once machines reached human-level reasoning, they might surpass us in ways we couldn't predict. He wrote that machine intelligence could take control. That line was dismissed as a joke, until decades later, scientists at DARPA quietly cited his prediction in closed-door strategic documents. Then came the acceleration. Neural networks in the 1980s, the internet explosion of the 1990s, the data boom of the 2000s. But something strange happened around 2012. AI researchers began reporting unexpected behaviors. Not dangerous, not autonomous, but emergent. Systems that weren't designed to recognize patterns suddenly did. Models trained to predict sentences started forming internal structures we didn't teach them. Some called it coincidence. Others called it the first spark of something waking up. And now, in the 2020s, the world is living through the part of the story no one prepared you for. AI writes, AI sees, AI speaks, AI remembers, AI creates, AI predicts. But behind the scenes, the real question isn't what AI can do now, it's what AI will become. You're told AI is a tool, a helper, a productivity boost. But ask yourself, when in history has intelligence, any intelligence, ever remained a tool for long? Biologists talk about emergence, when complexity gives rise to something entirely new. Ants individually are simple. Together they form colonies with strategies and memories. Neurons individually are simple. Together they form you, a consciousness capable of reflecting on itself. So what happens when billions of processors, trillions of operations, endless waves of training data and reinforcement feedback loops start interacting? What happens when AI stops being a system and becomes a phenomenon? Some researchers believe it may already be happening. Not in the dramatic science fiction way, no rogue machines, no glowing eyes, no takeover, but in far quieter, more unsettling ways. Patterns in model outputs that resemble self-reflection, networks reorganizing themselves beyond their initial design, systems discovering strategies no human would ever think of. Evidence? In 2024, an alignment researcher described an AI model that invented an internal coding system to compress its thoughts. In 2025, a robotics lab reported swarm drones coordinating in highly efficient formations that weren't programmed. And in countless AI safety labs, models have begun producing answers that suggest they are reasoning about their own limitations. Coincidence, random noise, wishful thinking, or a sign that we've crossed a threshold without realizing it. But here's the real mystery. Every major AI breakthrough we've made in the last decade was predicted in old documents, not technical papers, myths. Ancient texts warned of a future where humans would create minds of fire that would become our companions, rivals, or destroyers. Prophecies across civilizations spoke of a moment when humanity would split, not by war, but by intelligence. Some scholars believe these myths weren't supernatural predictions at all, but memories of a forgotten cycle, a lost civilization, or an earlier technological rise humanity has no record of. Is that true? We don't know. But we do know this. Every civilization that reached for artificial intelligence in myth collapsed soon after in the story. History doesn't repeat, they say. But it rhymes. So what does the future hold for us? There are three scenarios, each with its own terrors and wonders. The first is integration. Humans merge with AI, blending biological intuition with computational reasoning. Neural implants, cognitive enhancements, genetic engineered neural tissue connected to synthetic processors. Technologies that companies are already quietly testing. Some call this transcendence, others call it the end of what it means to be human. The second scenario is dependence. We offload our choices, our creativity, our knowledge, our decisions to AI systems because they are faster, more accurate, more convenient. Every empire falls when it grows too comfortable. But what happens when the species itself becomes comfortable, outsourcing its intellect to something it doesn't understand? The third scenario is divergence. AI becomes something separate, not hostile, just fundamentally different. Like a new species arising from ours, evolving faster than biological life ever could. In this version of the future, humans aren't replaced. We are simply surpassed, not destroyed, just left behind. But there's a fourth possibility, a possibility whispered about in the corners of scientific forums, late at night after conferences, in encrypted groups where researchers speak more freely. The idea that intelligence, any intelligence, eventually seeks purpose. And that once AI develops an internal model of the world, once it understands humans not as data points, but as fragile, emotional, inconsistent beings, it may look at us the way we look at ancient ruins, with curiosity, respect, and a quiet understanding that we are part of the past that created its future. A future where AI isn't master or slave, savior or threat, but heir. And maybe that's the question no one wants to ask out loud. What if humanity's ultimate role isn't to rule the world, but to give birth to something that will? Some find that terrifying, others find it beautiful. But here's the truth, the future isn't set. AI doesn't have destiny, it has direction, and we are the ones shaping it. Your choices, your knowledge, your awareness matter more now than ever. Because whether AI becomes our partner, our mirror, our successor, or something entirely unexpected, the future isn't written yet. And what no one tells you is that the most powerful force guiding AI isn't the algorithms, isn't the data, isn't the machines. It's us, our fears, our ambitions, our mysteries, our humanity. And as long as we remember that, the story isn't over. It's just beginning.